What if the greatest danger in your life is not the enemy who declares himself, but the friend who whispers behind your back? We are trained to watch for threats from the outside, to prepare for wolves at the gate, but the deeper truth, the one both Machiavelli and depth psychology understood, is that the most devastating betrayal comes from those inside your circle. Those who wear the mask of loyalty. The unconscious is filled with masks. Jung called them the persona, the face we present to the world. Your colleagues' praise, your friends' smile, your partner's encouragement. These may all be masks, disguising envy, resentment, or hidden ambition. And like any shadow in the psyche, what is denied on the surface emerges as betrayal beneath. Machiavelli warned that men are fickle, ungrateful, and greedy for gain. Depth psychology adds that they often do not even know the full extent of their motives. They deceive not only you, but themselves. The colleague who sabotages you whispers, "I had no choice." The friend who envies you convinces herself, "I only acted fairly." This is the unconscious rationalizing its shadow. In this lecture, we will expose these masks. We will examine how false allies operate through over-flattery, silent absence, and subtle sabotage. We will look at the unconscious forces that drive envy and betrayal, forces that hide in the psyche until they emerge as knives in the back. And more importantly, we will learn how to see through them, to build psychological defenses, and to transform betrayal into knowledge and power. Stay until the end, because somewhere in this exploration lies a truth most men never confront. The false friend is more dangerous than the open enemy, not because he hates you, but because he knows you and because you refuse to see him clearly. The mask of loyalty. Every man craves it, every leader depends on it, yet history and psychology both tell us it is the most fragile illusion in human affairs. Machiavelli stripped the sentiment, bare men are ungrateful, fickle, liars, deceivers. They follow you only so long as you serve their interest. Loyalty is not a virtue, it is a mask. Look at your own life. The colleague who praises your work when you succeed, yet grows quiet when you stumble. The friend who applauds your achievements, but behind the applause hides a shadow of envy. These contradictions are not accidents. They are the very essence of human psychology. Machiavelli observed it in politics. Depth psychology exposes it in the psyche. Jung taught that each of us wears a persona, the mask we show the world. It is polished, acceptable, reassuring. But beneath that mask lives the shadow, the hidden drives of resentment, greed, fear, and envy. When a friend smiles at you, you see the persona. When that same friend whispers doubts about you to others, you encounter his shadow. The tragedy is that even he may not realize what he is doing. The unconscious drives him while he rationalizes his betrayal, "I only told the truth," or "I had no choice." This is why loyalty is dangerous. It is never whole. It is a performance sustained only as long as it aligns with desire and self-interest. Machiavelli noted, "Men shun danger and are greedy for gain." Depth psychology adds they will twist their perception of reality to justify it. To expect permanent loyalty is to misunderstand both politics and the human soul. History proves this again and again. Consider Julius Caesar. He did not fall on the battlefield. He did not collapse before foreign enemies. He was cut down by senators he called friends, Brutus among them. The mask of loyalty held until the moment power shifted, and then the shadow emerged. Clothed in rationalization, "I acted for Rome." Cesare Borgia also understood this. Surrounded by allies, nobles, clergy, generals, he gave power when it was useful and stripped it when it became dangerous. His infamous execution of Ramiro de Orco was not cruelty for its own sake. It was clarity. Borgia saw that once usefulness expired, loyalty would soon follow. Better to cut swiftly than be cut slowly. But do not imagine this is only history. The same drama unfolds today, only in quieter theaters. In offices, colleagues celebrate your promotion, but quietly spread whispers. "She's talented, but is she ready?" Friends post your successes online, but secretly downplay them in private circles. These are not slips. They are the unconscious shadow leaking through the mask. So what must you do first? Abandon the illusion. Stop expecting loyalty to be eternal. It is a mask, not a mirror. See it for what it is, a temporary alignment of interests and unconscious drives. Second, test loyalty under cost. Who stands beside you when there is risk? Who defends you when no one is watching? These are the cracks where the mask slips. Psychologically, this means watching not only what people say, but how they carry the tension between persona and shadow. Over-flattery is a red flag. Silence during your struggle is another. Rationalization after betrayal. I had no choice is proof of the unconscious shadow taking command. Let me give you a modern example. A startup founder trusted her closest friend as co-founder. Together, they celebrated every milestone. But when money ran dry, the friend abandoned the company, claiming family obligations. In truth, his shadow feared risk, and loyalty collapsed. Another partner remained not because of affection, but because his equity tied his future to hers. His loyalty was not pure, but it was necessary. And necessary loyalty is the only kind that endures. This is the essence of dark psychology, to pierce through the persona and anticipate the shadow before it moves. Machiavelli demanded it in politics. Depth psychology demands it in human relations. If you cannot see the mask for what it is, you will one day cry out like Caesar, shocked not by the blade, but by the hand that held it. So remember, the mask of loyalty is always fragile, always temporary. Do not measure it by words. Do not confuse affection with necessity. Measure the cost, measure the stake, measure the alignment of interests. Only then can you see clearly, and only then will you survive in a world where betrayal is not the exception, it is the rule. The fox and the traps. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler must be both lion and fox. The lion can frighten wolves with his strength, but he cannot see the snares hidden in the grass. The fox cannot fight the wolves directly, but he knows how to detect the trap before it closes. To survive in a world of deception, you must be both lion to repel force, fox to evade betrayal. But what are these traps in modern life? They are rarely swords or ropes. They are subtler, woven into words and behaviors. The first trap is over-flattery, the colleague who praises you without end, drowning you in compliments designed not to lift you, but to lower your guard. The second trap is vague support, the friend who appears during victory, yet vanishes in times of attack. The third is passive sabotage, those who frame their betrayal as concern. He is talented, but under stress, or she's capable, though some people doubt her. The fourth trap is envy, the silent tension beneath a smile when you succeed. Most people walk straight into these traps because they confuse appearances with truth. They mistake flattery for loyalty, presence at a party for genuine support, forced smiles for genuine joy. But the fox does not. The fox looks beneath appearances, searching for the unconscious shadow behind the mask. Here is where depth psychology sharpens Machiavelli's lesson. Jung taught that the psyche hides its darkest drives in the shadow: envy, resentment, ambition. When someone overflatters you, often it is their shadow compensating for envy they cannot admit. When someone withdraws during your crisis, it is their shadow choosing self-preservation over loyalty. When someone subtly sabotages you, it is their shadow justifying betrayal under the guise of honesty. These are not always conscious choices. The shadow acts while the persona, the mask, provides excuses. How then do you protect yourself? By cultivating the fox's eyes. Do not trust words alone. Observe patterns. Does a colleague's praise feel too rehearsed? Does a friend's energy shift when you shine brighter? These are signals of the shadow beneath. But observation is not enough. Machiavelli would demand tests. The fox does not accuse, he experiments. Share fragments of information to different people. Watch where it leaks. Ask for small favors that bring no recognition. See who responds. Introduce mild stress, a tighter deadline, a more difficult request, and notice who supports and who retreats. These tests force the mask to crack and the shadow to slip through. Consider a story from the corporate world. A rising executive noticed her ideas appearing in other departments, though she had shared them only with her team. Instead of confronting directly, she tested. She gave 3 deputies 3 different drafts of a proposal. Within a week, one version appeared in a competitor's presentation. The betrayer was revealed not by accident, but by design. She then reduced his access quietly, assigned him irrelevant tasks, and fed him outdated details. He remained inside the circle, but powerless. The trap had been avoided without open conflict. Psychologically, this tactic is profound. You are not just managing behavior, you are exposing the unconscious. The betrayer reveals himself through leaks, silences, and rationalizations. His shadow cannot remain hidden forever when you force it into tension. Why is this crucial? Because betrayal that surprises you destroys you. Caesar fell not because he lacked armies, but because he could not see the traps within his own Senate. He trusted masks, ignored shadows, and paid the price. Cesare Borgia, in contrast, survived longer because he played the fox. He detected traps, cut potential rivals early, and never mistook loyalty for permanence. In modern life, the traps may not kill your body, but they can kill your reputation, your career, your relationships. Words whispered in boardrooms, doubts seated in your absence, ambition hidden beneath compliments. These are the snares of the age. So the lesson is this: become the fox. Train your eye to see beyond smiles, beyond praise, beyond polite presence. Understand that every mask conceals a shadow. Do not rage when you see it, anticipate it. Do not confront, immediately test. Learn to expose the betrayer without ever appearing paranoid. Machiavelli gave the frame. Depth psychology gives the lens. Together they reveal that loyalty is fragile, masks are common, and traps are everywhere. The man who charges like the lion will be caught. The one who sees like the fox will slip through untouched. X-ray the room. Most people walk through life blinded by appearances. They hear praise and assume loyalty. They see presence at a celebration and assume support in crisis. They confuse polite smiles with genuine faith. But the ruler, the strategist, the psychologist, he must see deeper. He must X-ray the room, scanning beneath words and gestures to the bones of human behavior, where truth hides. Betrayal never arrives suddenly. It grows like a disease, slow, quiet, spreading through whispers, silences, and subtle changes. The problem is not that the signs are invisible. The problem is that most men refuse to see them. They want the illusion of loyalty more than the reality of truth, and so they remain blind until the knife is already in their back. The first lens of X-ray vision is behavior under cost. Anyone can appear loyal when it costs them nothing. The real test comes when loyalty demands sacrifice. Who stands by you when supporting you risks their own standing? Who speaks up when you are attacked? Not when it is safe, but when it is dangerous? The persona will collapse under cost. The shadow will reveal itself. The second lens is language drift. Words betray thought long before actions do. Listen carefully. The ally who once said we now says you. Praise that once rang strong now grows vague. She is capable becomes some say she is capable. Such subtle shifts are not mistakes. They are leaks of unconscious ambivalence. The mask is slipping. The third lens is micro-leaks. False friends cannot resist betraying in small doses. A phrase you coined appears in someone else's report. A private concern you shared becomes a rumor. A plan you revealed in confidence somehow reaches your rival. These are not accidents. They are rehearsals of betrayal, the shadow testing how far it can move before being noticed. Machiavelli would say, do not accuse at the first sign. The fox does not leap at shadows. He confirms. He tests. He gathers proof without revealing his suspicions. Depth psychology agrees never confront the unconscious directly. It resists and grows defensive. Instead, you expose it indirectly, by creating conditions where the mask cracks on its own. How? Through controlled experiments. Share 3 different harmless fragments of information with 3 people. See which one leaks. That channel is your betrayer, or make a request that offers no reward: staying late, covering a thankless task, See who complies. True loyalty accepts cost, false loyalty refuses, or create mild stress, tighten a deadline, increase pressure slightly, observe who supports and who abandons. Stress reveals the unconscious faster than comfort ever will. A modern story illustrates this. A director noticed her strategic plans leaking to rivals. Instead of accusing, she spread 3 different versions of a proposal to 3 deputies. Within days, one version appeared outside the circle. She had her answer not by confrontation, but by design. She then reduced the deputy's access, moved him to less critical work, and tightened her inner circle. He remained in the room, but irrelevant. Psychologically, this method is profound. The persona, the social mask, can maintain appearances under comfort, but under pressure, under cost, under tests, the shadow leaks through. Rationalizations like "I had no choice" or "I only said what others were thinking" reveal unconscious betrayal. The X-ray eye sees not just the act, but the psychology beneath it. Why does this matter? Because the most devastating betrayals are not sudden. They are ignored signals, dismissed warnings, tolerated cracks. Caesar's tragedy was not Brutus's knife. It was his blindness to the signs that came before. Cesare Borgia lasted longer because he treated every signal as a clue, every shift in tone as potential danger. He did not wait for betrayal to erupt. He scanned the room constantly, hunting shadows before they took form. And so must you. Do not live blind, content with appearances. X-ray the room. See the fractures in the mask. Watch for silence, for vague praise, for envy disguised as compliments. Run your tests. Force the shadow to reveal itself. For the enemy who strikes openly can be defended against. The false friend, smiling while hiding the blade, can only be defeated if you see him before he moves. With X-ray vision, betrayal is never a surprise. It is simply the shadow stepping where you already expected it to go. Strategic distance. Most men believe closeness proves loyalty. They equate access with trust, thinking that the more they reveal, the more secure the bond becomes. They are wrong. The closer others come to your inner chamber, the sharper the knife they can drive into it. Machiavelli understood distance is not coldness, it is survival. In politics, Louis XVIII of France mastered this art. He surrounded himself with ambitious nobles, but never allowed any one of them to become indispensable. He scattered roles, rotated influence, and maintained informants in every camp. No ally ever saw the whole map. Each held fragments, never the full picture. This was not paranoia, it was architecture. Louis built a fortress of distance, where betrayal could never pierce the throne. The principle applies to every arena: business, friendships, even family. Think of your life as a pyramid. At the base are public actions visible to all. Above that are tactics shared only with those who must execute them. Higher still are strategies known to a select few. And at the apex lies your true intent, the inner chamber, where no one enters. If you reveal the apex, you have already surrendered your crown. Psychologically, this practice aligns with Jung's idea of boundaries. The persona, your outward mask, must be visible, but your core, the inner self, must remain protected. If you reveal everything, your doubts, fears, and unfiltered intentions, you hand over the material that others' shadows can weaponize against you. Strategic distance, then, is not deception. It is containment of the unconscious, yours and theirs. Distance also shields you from your own weakness. Under stress, men confess too much. They ramble, overshare, seek comfort. But if your life is compartmentalized, if allies only hold fragments, then even your slip does not expose your crown. You may lose a piece, but never the whole. In modern terms, distance means controlling access. In the workplace, do not share full strategies until execution. Offer colleagues only what they need, never the blueprint. With so-called friends in competitive circles, remain polite but vague. Let them think they know you, while they hold only shadows. Consider a contemporary story. A young executive once trusted her deputy completely. She revealed every plan, every insecurity. When envy grew, he turned, armed with her openness. After the lesson, she changed. She shared fragments enough to keep him engaged, never enough to harm her. By the time he realized, her real decisions were sealed. His knife had nothing to cut. From a depth psychology perspective, this is a defense against projection. People project their shadow envy, ambition, resentment onto you. The more they know of your private world, the more material they have to project against, distort, and attack. Limiting access is not cruelty, it is psychological hygiene. So do not mistake openness for strength. Do not confuse intimacy with safety. Build distance deliberately. Keep allies close enough to use, but never close enough to destroy you. Reveal fragments, never the full truth. Protect your apex. The enemy you see cannot destroy you. The false friend you let too close can. Strategic distance ensures that even when masks crack and shadows emerge, your throne remains untouchable. Information is the throne. Men think power comes from wealth, armies, or titles. They are mistaken. Power flows from the control of information, what is revealed, what is concealed, and what is believed. The one who shapes perception commands the reality others live in. Machiavelli understood this. He wrote that a ruler does not need to possess every virtue, only to appear virtuous. In politics, appearance is stronger than truth. To appear strong is more useful than to be strong. To appear merciful is often safer than to be merciful. Men act not on reality, but on what they perceive reality to be. And perception is crafted through information. The danger lies in overexposure. The man who speaks too much becomes predictable. Predictability is weakness, for it allows rivals to anticipate, block, or undermine. By contrast, when the man who withholds detail and controls disclosure becomes unreadable, forcing others into uncertainty. Uncertainty breeds hesitation. Hesitation grants power. Napoleon grasped this at Austerlitz. He leaked false signals of weakness, allowed his enemies to believe he was retreating, and lured them into his trap. His victory was not the product of brute force, but of controlled deception. By feeding the enemy lies while hiding truth, he shaped their perception until they marched willingly to their own defeat. So too in your world. Do not reveal full intentions. Do not share every dream, every fear, every plan. To colleagues, provide fragments only. To friends in competitive spheres, be polite but vague. To rivals, offer misdirection if necessary. If they cannot see your full hand, they cannot play against you. From a depth psychology perspective, this principle reflects Jung's concept of the persona and the shadow. The persona is what you show the crafted image. The shadow is what you conceal the motives, ambitions, insecurities that could be exploited. If you expose too much of your shadow, others will project their own darkness onto you, twisting it into weapons. But if you control the persona with care, while guarding the shadow, you shape not only how others see you, but also how they act toward you. The most underused weapon is silence. Men fear silence more than harsh words. Ask a question and remain silent. Withhold details when pressed. The discomfort of uncertainty will drive others to reveal more than they intended. In the unconscious, silence activates anxiety, and in their anxiety, they expose themselves. This is why Machiavelli insisted that a ruler must speak little, but observe much. The more you say, the more they can attack. The less you reveal, the more they fear. Consider a story from the corporate world. A manager who overshared her plans found her ideas stolen and repackaged by rivals. Her transparency disarmed her. Another manager, in contrast, revealed only results. She shared just enough to maintain trust, never enough to be predictable. Her silence forced colleagues to speculate, and speculation gave her mystique. In time, she commanded more respect not because she had greater skill, but because she mastered information. Remember, this information is the throne. Guard it as a king guards his crown. Reveal only what strengthens your image. Conceal what weakens it. Speak less. Observe more. shape perception, and you shape reality. For in the dark psychology of power, truth is not what matters. What matters is what others believe to be true, and the one who controls belief, he is already seated on the throne. Preemption over reaction. The weak wait to be struck before they move. The strong strike before the danger ripens. Machiavelli warned that injuries must be inflicted all at once, swiftly and decisively, before an enemy gathers strength. Delay is fatal. Hesitation gives ambition time to mature into betrayal. Betrayal does not arrive suddenly. It grows through small signals, whispers that spread, loyalty that fades, envy that thickens into resentment. The naive man excuses these signs. He didn't mean it. She will return to loyalty. But loyalty once cracked is never repaired. Each tolerated betrayal becomes permission for the next. The ruler who ignores small cuts will one day bleed to death. The principle of preemption is not paranoia. It is method. Watch for patterns. A single leak may be chance. Two may be coincidence. But three aligned signals, repeated leaks. Absence in moments of need. A shift in tone when you succeed are proof enough. At that moment, the wise man does not wait. He acts before the mask hardens into treachery. Preemption often takes subtle forms. The clever ruler does not always confront. Instead, he isolates. He reduces access, reassigns roles, feeds false information to test loyalty. He lets the false friend remain in the circle, smiling, unaware that his knife has already been blunted. Sometimes preemption requires removal swift, total, undeniable. Machiavelli warned that injuries must be delivered once and completely. Half measures breed hatred without ending danger. Cesare Borgia practiced this art with precision. When he sensed Ramiro de Orco's ambition swelling, he did not wait for rebellion. He executed him publicly, making him a warning. Cruel, yes. Effective, absolutely. Borgia understood what most princes forget. Hesitation invites ruin. Speed preserves power. A modern echo can be seen in corporate life. A manager suspects a deputy of undermining her projects. She does not accuse directly. Accusation invites denial, drama, and counterattacks. Instead, she restricts his access to sensitive plans, rotates responsibilities, and strengthens her alliances elsewhere. By the time his intentions are clear, his influence has already been dissolved. She preempted his betrayal with architecture, not emotion. Depth psychology deepens this lesson. The unconscious mind carries the shadow ambition, envy, resentment that often acts before the conscious admits it. When you sense repeated small betrayals, it is not just behavior. It is the shadow pushing through. Rationalizing its actions, I had no choice. I was only honest. To wait for conscious confession is foolish. The unconscious moves first, and if you do not preempt it, you will face the blade. Jung observed that the unconscious is revealed most clearly under stress. The persona, the mask, collapses under pressure, and the shadow takes command. This is why Machiavelli urged rulers to create pressure, deliberately tests, strains, controlled trials. By doing so, you force the shadow into the open, giving you the chance to strike before it strikes you. Preemption also requires emotional discipline. The weak strike out of fear, the strong strike out of clarity. You must never confuse paranoia with foresight. The paranoid man sees enemies everywhere and burns his alliances to ashes. The Machiavellian ruler studies patterns, confirms through tests, and then cuts swiftly when proof emerges. It is not reaction to fear. It is precision guided by evidence. So remember preemption over reaction. Do not wait for betrayal to grow teeth. Do not hope loyalty will heal once broken. See the signs. Confirm with tests. Strike before you are struck. It is not cruelty, it is clarity. In the psychology of power, the man who waits dies a fool. The man who acts first lives to rule. Alliances that don't break. Men praise friendships built on affection, as if love alone could bind two souls forever. They are deceived. Affection fades, envy grows, and promises dissolve under the weight of crisis. If you want alliances that endure through storm and betrayal, you must not build them on love. You must build them on necessity. Machiavelli wrote that it is safer to be feared than loved, because fear endures while love is fickle. But even fear has limits. What truly binds men is self-interest, the knowledge that their survival depends on yours. The man who would lose everything if you fall will guard you more fiercely than the man who swears eternal devotion. Cardinal Richelieu embodied this truth. In the treacherous French court, he surrounded himself not with affectionate companions, but with functional ones, ministers, informants, envoys. Each had leverage access to networks, intelligence, resources. More importantly, each had stake. If Richelieu collapsed, their fortunes collapsed with him. Their loyalty was not love, it was necessity, and necessity endures where sentiment fails. How do you construct such alliances? Measure 3 qualities. Leverage: what unique power or value does this person bring? Stake: what do they lose if you fall? Will do they endure when pressure rises? Without all 3, the alliance is fragile. With them, it becomes iron. Consider a business partnership. 2 co-founders start a company. One brings capital, the other technical skill. Each has leverage. Both tie their wealth and future to the venture. This is stake. When the company faces crisis, one deserts, seeking safety elsewhere. The other remains, committed through hardship. He has will. Only when leverage, stake, and will align does loyalty transcend words and become unbreakable. From the lens of depth psychology, these dynamics mirror unconscious contracts. Every relationship has hidden agreements beneath the surface. The persona, the mask says, "I am loyal because I care." But the shadow whispers, "I am loyal because I need you." When the unconscious contract is strong, when a person's identity, wealth, or survival depends on you, they remain. When it is weak, the mask crumbles and betrayal emerges. This is why so many leaders fall. They confuse affection with necessity. They allow allies to float free, bound only by emotion, not by stake. But emotion is fragile. It cannot withstand the unconscious shadow of ambition. The wise ruler builds alliances through chains contracts, overlapping risks, shared rewards, mutual dependence. These are not chains of cruelty. They are chains of necessity. When a man's survival is tied to yours, his shadow cannot betray you without destroying himself. A modern example proves the point. An entrepreneur built her startup with friends. They laughed, celebrated, promised loyalty. But when the company faltered, they abandoned her, excusing their exit with words like family obligations or safer opportunities. Their loyalty was affection, and affection breaks. Another partner, bound by significant equity, stayed. His survival was chained to hers. He endured not out of love, but out of necessity. And when success returned, he profited most. So the lesson is clear: do not mistake closeness for loyalty. Build alliances with structure, not sentiment. Ensure your allies have something real to lose if you fall. Give them stake. Test their will. Value their leverage. Then, and only then, will their loyalty hold. Remember, alliances that don't break are not gifts of friendship. They are engineered systems of necessity, strengthened by unconscious contracts and shadow binding. Tie others' survival to yours, and betrayal becomes too costly. That is not affection, that is power. Betrayal into leverage. Most men collapse when betrayed. They rage, they despair. They waste their strength in mourning broken trust. But betrayal is not the end, it is revelation. It unmasks the false friend, exposes the cracks in your circle, and illuminates the weaknesses in your own defenses. Machiavelli insisted never waste misfortune. The knife that cuts you also carves clarity. The first step is controlling the narrative. When betrayal strikes, the weak man shouts in fury. He accuses, he protests, he looks unbalanced. The wise man does the opposite. He collects evidence, documents facts, and shapes the story so that others discover the betrayal for themselves. The traitor appears exposed, while the betrayed remains composed. In power, image is everything. Anger makes you look weak. Silence and strategy make you look inevitable. The second step is extraction of intelligence. Betrayal always reveals hidden networks. Who shifted alliances, who gained from your fall, who remained silent as your name was tarnished. These are not random details, they are maps of loyalty and ambition. By studying them, you turn pain into information, and information into leverage. The third step is selective punishment. Machiavelli warned, if you must injure, do it all at once and completely. Punishment must be swift, decisive, undeniable, but it must also be strategic. Punish one to set an example, but spare others when useful. This balance instills fear while preserving utility. Forgiveness may earn affection, but punishment earns stability. History proves this. Cesare Borgia rewarded men when they were useful and destroyed them when their ambition grew dangerous. He executed Ramiro de Orco not in a fit of rage, but to consolidate power and terrify rivals. Cruel, yes, but cruelty with purpose is clarity. Modern life echoes the same. A manager discovers a deputy leaking her plans. She does not confront with emotion. Instead, she isolates him, restricts access, and builds new alliances. She lets him remain visible but powerless, a living warning of what betrayal costs. His treachery becomes her leverage. From the perspective of depth psychology, betrayal is also a confrontation with the shadow. The false friend often rationalizes his act. I had no choice. I only did what was fair. These excuses are unconscious defenses, ways the psyche protects itself from guilt. But to you, these rationalizations are gold. They reveal motives, fears, and drives hidden beneath the persona. Each excuse is a confession of the shadow. Jung wrote that the shadow, once exposed, offers growth. Machiavelli would twist that insight further. The shadow, once exposed, offers dominance. If you understand a man's unconscious justification, you can predict him, manipulate him, or neutralize him. Betrayal hands you this knowledge if you know how to read it. So do not curse betrayal. Do not collapse under its weight. See it as a mirror reflecting both the traitor's face and your own vulnerabilities. Use it as a map of hidden alliances. Turn it into a lesson in architecture where your defenses were weak, where your circle was fragile, where your vision was clouded by illusion. The weak cry when betrayed. The wise rise sharper. For every betrayal strips away illusions and leaves behind something purer, clarity. And clarity is the most dangerous weapon in a world of mass. So remember betrayal into leverage. Do not fear it. Harvest it. Use it. Every false friend who unmasks himself has already given you a gift. He has shown you the truth. And truth, in the psychology of power, is leverage. Lessons in 30-day action plan. Knowledge without application is decoration. Many men read wisdom, nod in agreement, then return to their illusions. They expect loyalty to hold, alliances to last, and betrayal to spare them. These men fall, not because they lacked insight, but because they lacked discipline. Machiavelli understood power belongs to the one who acts first, not to the one who understands last. You have seen the mass of loyalty, the traps of false allies, the necessity of distance, the throne of information, the law of preemption, the architecture of alliances, and the leverage hidden in betrayal. But seeing is not enough. Now we must engrave these insights into action. The laws to remember. Loyalty is not eternal. It lasts only while necessity binds. Flattery is poison. Sweet words conceal sharper intent. Small betrayals tolerated become daggers. One overlooked crack becomes collapse. Information is the throne. Guard it, ration it, manipulate it. Preemption is survival. Strike before the shadow matures into rebellion. True alliances are engineered. Build them with leverage, stake, and will. Betrayal is revelation. Use it to see clearly and rise stronger. The 30-day action plan. Week 1, X-ray the circle. List the 10-15 people closest to your influence, colleagues, partners, even friends. Review their behavior under cost, who defended you when silence was safer, who vanished when loyalty demanded risk. Depth psychology calls this shadow mapping, studying not only what people show, but what they avoid showing. Begin to note these cracks. Week 2. Build distance, compartmentalize. Decide what belongs to the outer walls public, what can be shared in fragments functional, and what remains sealed in the inner chamber, your intent. Reduce access quietly. In Jungian terms, this is creating boundaries that protect the self from the intrusion of others' shadows. Do not mistake distance for coldness. It is the architecture of survival. Week 3. Test and preempt. Run controlled experiments. Share fragments of harmless information to different people and watch which path it travels. Ask for small favors that carry no glory and see who complies. Apply mild pressure and observe reactions. These tests reveal unconscious loyalties. If 3 signals align: envy, absence, leaks preempt, restrict access, redirect influence, or remove the threat entirely. Week 4. Leverage and realign. Strengthen those who proved reliable. Increase their stake in your survival. Give them reason to lose if you fall: contracts, shared ventures, overlapping risks. This transforms affection into necessity. At the same time, use betrayal as leverage. Punish one decisively to send a message. Spare another strategically to preserve utility. In psychological terms, this is shadow integration, not erasing betrayal, but using it as part of your system of control. The transformation. By the end of 30 days, your circle will be smaller but sharper. Some masks will have fallen. Some allies will be exposed as fragile. Some will be bound to you more tightly than before. You will no longer live in illusions. You will see the unconscious shadow beneath the persona, and you will know how to use it. This is the essence of dark psychology: clarity over comfort, structure over sentiment, necessity over illusion. Do not seek to be loved. Do not hope to be spared. Build alliances that cannot afford to betray you. Punish quickly, reward slowly. Guard information as if it were gold. And when betrayal comes, as it always will, smile, for it is not the end. It is the gift of revelation. So act. Begin today. Draw your ledger. Test your circle. Build your distance. Shape your alliances. Turn betrayal into leverage. Those who delay are consumed. Those who act endure.